Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to tonight's continuing coverage of the Marvel series Secret Invasion. We're hitting episode 4 tonight, beloved, more than the halfway point for sure. And I've got an amazing group of people, of course, to discuss tonight's episode with me. As usual, of course, we have from Smirking Reviews, Rob Stone.
What up, everybody watching in the chat and in the archives? Another episode in the bag, and we're here to talk everything about it. And I'm smart enough to finally put hashtag, I still can't do this. Hashtag justice for Maria there this time. So it's always there in your mind. And now I'll just segue right on down there.
Yeah, of course, from Alyssa Jean's reviews, old friend of the show, we're excited to have her tonight. It's Alyssa Jean.
Hi, excited to be here. Talk about this show for the first time with you all. I have thoughts, so looking forward to sharing them.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's not waste any time. Let's just dive right in, Alyssa. Let me know, what have you been thinking about the show, and then you can kind of segue into tonight's discussion on tonight's episode. So, yeah, how have you been taking in Secret Invasion?
So I think I've been enjoying it more than most. And I think the reason why is because I had lower expectations than most. I feel like a lot of people, I remember even talking to Darren, when we were doing another live stream, we were like, oh, I'm super excited for this show. And I just heard a lot of hype, a lot of people, like even months ago, talking about how they can't wait for this show, where I was just like, I don't know. I think it has everything to do with being I got franchise fatigue. I'm kind of marveled out. And it's not like I don't think anything was particularly bad. Like a lot of people thought the Eternals was bad or Thor was bad or She-Hulk was bad or whatever. I didn't think any of those were bad. I just feel like we've been hit with one mediocre project after the other, with occasional really good one. Like I actually like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 quite a lot. Spider-Man was a great one. There's some good ones in the mix, but for the most part, we're just being bombarded with a bunch of mediocre projects, and I'm kind of over it. And I was just like, not even sure if I was even going to watch this. For me, as a Star Trek fan, Star Trek Strange New World Season 2 was coming out the week before, and I was like infinitely more excited for that than for this. Like, I just didn't even really care about this. I almost forgot it was coming on until Darren invited me to join, and we set up for me to join on week 4. And I was like, I guess I got to watch it now since I've been invited to go on this thing. But I just wasn't even that excited about it. And so now that I'm watching it, I'm just like, I had low expectations. So this show is exactly what I expected it to be, which is, I think, and I also have no relationship with the source material, which I know a lot of people might have developed expectations because of having been familiar with the source material. I am not. So I had no high expectations. So for me, this is delivering what I expected. I'm just appreciating the positive aspects. I'm really enjoying Samuel L. Jackson's acting, and his interactions with Ben Mendelsohn have been great. Maybe RIP for real, we'll see. But I've been really enjoying that. There's been some really cool scenes. I liked the scene last week when all the people stood up in the restaurant and they were all graphic. I think there's been like some cool stuff to latch on to. So I've just been kind of like enjoying that and not being bothered by the less than stellar aspects of it, because I kind of expected it. I think you guys, I watched a bit of you last week. You were talking about how it was a by the numbers, and that's how I kind of see it too. And I just feel like, I don't know, like I think a lot of people were expecting it to be this, like, oh, who's a scroll? I watch all these YouTube videos ahead of time where like, oh, who's going to be a scroll? Oh, this person's going to be a scroll, and that person's going to be a scroll, and ooh, and coming up with all these theories. But it's not been that. It's not been any big surprises. Like Rhodey's a scroll. Ooh, people were talking about Rhodey being a scroll before the damn show even aired. Like we're like, oh, Rhodey's in this. I bet he's a scroll. Like no, it's not a surprise. And we'll get into Gaia's death too. I came in on the chat last week when you guys were talking, and I was like, I'm like rolling my eyes that they're even pretending that she's dead. I never for 1 second believed that she was anywhere close to dead, and they just brought her back immediately. Like it was all very predictable. And like I compare it to like Star Trek Deep Space Nine when they did the Changeling storyline. I think about Battlestar Galactica with the Cylons, and just how it was like a lot of twists and turns, like, ooh, who's the Cylon or who's the Changeling? And like there was a lot of really great twists and shocks, and like you never knew who could pop up being a Cylon or a Changeling. And this is like, yeah, Rhodey's a Skrull. I knew that. Like it's not like that. I mean, maybe it'll be like that in the last two episodes. Maybe we have a surprise or two coming. Who knows? But so far, it's been pretty by the numbers. And honestly, I expected it to be. I did not have high expectations for this show. So I'm just kind of rolling with what it's given us, and like enjoying the good parts, and like I'm not at all disappointed because I didn't have any expectations for this show. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, it's a classic Gen X approach here. If we're going with low expectations, say that we're never really disappointed. Luckily, we've got some excellent expectations and chat going on. Want to be sure to say hi to Bill Casey, Eric Scott, Babaro, all joining us live in the chat right now. Always happy to see y'all. And of course, was talking with a few other people earlier, and 3 out of 4 cliffhangers agree that's too much. There is a repetition that this series is falling into. The Maria Hill shot, that was shocking. And then you get the Gaia, which, like, as you said, Alyssa, didn't really expect to lose her, especially it's like you're going to kill another character now. And then tonight, by the way, spoilers for tonight's episode before we get in too far. Then Talos's death tonight. I'm like, you can't keep killing. That's not how you can end all the episodes, is by killing a person and being like, oh, what's going to happen? Wait till next week. And it's sad because, there's a difference between good moments and a good show. Good moments are great, but a good show requires that you connect all of these moments in a logical and efficient way in order to tell an overall story, to weave them in emotional arcs that's going to carry the audience along with it. And I think including stuff that is interesting but doesn't really serve the story is, I think, a hallmark of one of the issues that's really wrong with this show, and a lot of the other more recent Disney Plus Marvel offerings. A moment can be compelling, but if they don't connect to create a satisfying story, the audience is going to be felt left down. And I think that's what we have here. There are a lot of really cool moments in this episode, I think. But it's unfortunate because the overall story doesn't seem to they don't piece together well. They don't carry that kind of emotional arc. And it's, I think that's just one of the reasons why these start to feel unsatisfying. Because I think there's been some great scenes between Priscilla and Fury in this episode. I think there's some great, nice emotional moments, but I don't know if that side story is helping tell the overall story at all. There's great bits between Sam Mendelsohn and Samuel L. Jackson, as you were mentioning, but those don't always connect in a way. I think the assault on the Admiral's house the other night, or last week that we talked about, was kind of that. It's like there's all these great little moments, but when they connect together, it's just something feels missing. And to me, this was just most apparent, I think, in this episode. Again, a lot of great moments, but by the end of it, I was like, yeah, but it doesn't really go together right. Especially that last big battle scene, which I know was supposed to be kind of invigorating. And to me, ultimately, it's like you set it up and then a whole bunch of things happen that make absolutely no sense in order for you to get the ending that you want. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But let's kick things off with Gaia, because like you said, Alyssa, they didn't waste any time in jumping in and letting you know that, no, she's not dead. She was able to sneak off and get some extremists put into her system and jumped in the magic machine before she ran away to avoid being captured. She would have missed. I think she would have missed Graphic entirely if she didn't waste the time to get the extremists in order to survive that attack. But yeah, let's kick off with Gaia's story. What were your thoughts on again that kind of like quick return, and then we can even talk about her little discussion with her dad, which just sort of popped in the episode later, and then she wandered off again to unknown future.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, the whole thing was clunky. Like, I mean, really, did she have time? I don't think she actually did have time to do that. And the way that it's presented, it's like, ooh, look what really happened. Ooh, look, she actually snuck off and got extremists. Ooh, big surprise. Ooh, we shocked you. Like, no, it was the most obvious thing in the world. She obviously was not dead. Like, and everybody called it. Like, every YouTube channel, I said, oh, she probably took some extremists at some point and she's fine. Like, it was so obvious. This is kind of like how the show is. Like, they're trying to, ooh, Rhodey's a scroll. Ooh, the like really not shocking things that the way that the show presents it's as if they expect me to be surprised by this. The way that they snuck that back, the flashback scene in with the present day scene of just her body laying on the ground, and they kind of edited that together, that I was supposed to be shocked by this. It was like, yeah, I kind of knew that. So I don't know, and I feel like if you go back and watch, I would have to go back and watch last week's episode, but I don't think she actually had time to do that. So it's just clunky. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad they just got it out of the way right at the beginning of the episode. I mean, that's a positive thing I could say, because like I said, I rolled my eyes when they like shot her. I'm like, oh, they're not killing off Emilia Clarke. And I felt bad for my brother. He was on here last week. He was like, well, I would be really disappointed if she comes back to life. And I'm like, oh, poor Mark. Like, she's definitely not dead. Like, I'm sorry to tell you, 0% chance she's dead. So yeah, at least they got it out of the way and we can move on with our lives.
Sure. Now, we also had that discussion, like I said, with her dad, with Talos, as kind of a measurement of, hey, I'm still alive, which was nice. And he's the apologetic, I'm sorry I got you into this. And they gave a little kind of interesting back and forth, I guess, on philosophy. We've got Gaia sort of focused on, she wants the home world. She wants to live in her own skin, as they say. While Talos is definitely more on the lines of, well, what we're going to do is we're going to do the right thing. Then they're going to see that we're doing the right thing. And then they're going to believe in us. And then we're going to have something. I mean, he does mention like helping to save the world and using a little bit of that as leverage, to show their side, which is good. But I'm kind of curious, and I don't know, Alyssa, if maybe you've picked up on something else that I had missed. When exactly did Gaia join this side? Because she mentions there, like, I came to you because you're the one place that feels like home. But we've kind of known nothing about her motivation. I didn't know in the beginning if she was like there as bait, or she was then helping, and then how long she'd been helping. And they sound like this is some long established back and forth. But as far as I know, she just decided like 2 days ago to start helping them out. So did you have any thoughts or insights, or I mean, what did you get as how long has this sort of like helping arrangement, Gaia as a spy, been happening?
Well, I think that started in the earlier episode, and I didn't read that scene the same way. I didn't think that they were speaking as if it was a long-term thing. So
okay,
to me, yeah, that happened in the previous episode. What was it, that first episode or whatever, where they had that encounter, and like, yeah, and that's where it started. And so, yeah, she has only been helping them for a short period of time, but I didn't read the scene as if she had been helping him for any longer than that. So I just saw it differently.
And of course, we do get that moment that would be kind of bad if Talos does die, that she walked away in anger. You're always going to have that regretful moment. But I was like, where is she going exactly?
Yeah, off of the show into next week's episode.
That's right. There you go.
She's
There you
welcome
go.
on the next week's episode. Um, and yeah, as far as you mentioned Talus's plan, yeah, that's such a weak sauce plan. Like that's his big plan. Like that's not going to convince anybody. Like it's to the point where I don't know where we go from here. Like how do they stop Gravik? How do they convince anyone to turn away from Gravik? Like I just don't see it. I guess maybe you know the Falcon, new Captain America, will fly in and give us a big speech and inspire everybody like he
There
did
you
at
go.
that show, and just all of a sudden everybody would go, "Well, Captain America's words are wise. I think that we will join with the humans now." Like I don't see where this is going. Like I don't, because Talos's plan sucked. Like so. I mean, I don't know if they're going to try to do the thing that, oh, well, he's dead now, so his daughter is going to try to pick up his mantle and it's going to work. I don't think that plan should work. Like, so if it does work, that's not good writing. So I don't know what they're going to do.
We all agree, and Carol Danvers needs to show up by the end of this and just be like, "Oh, I found a place. Sorry, I was distracted. I had to do a thing. Great planet. Here you go." Um, Rob, anything that we missed there on Gaia's journey, both through Extremis and in navigating the new spy world there?
Well, first, what I want to say is like I really regret like as soon as because we were so into this conversation from last week, and I know like as soon as you were, like talked about Alyssa's comment, I was like, she's right, and I should have just backed it up right there. I should have jumped on it right then because I was just like, that's probably what it is. Like she's so right. She's not dead, and like as much as it would be a much better story to me, yeah, it's like again we keep even see we're toning down our like not just our expectations but our theories to like what like we're not going like we've gone far, but now we've tempered them down so far that like even when it's like something small we're wrong to the simpler explanation of just the cliched we got Amelia Clark and yeah everybody's gonna have powers and by the, like and it's just so right like we and so congratulations on that one because it was amazingly just well put in the chat. This is why the chat's great, and especially I also want to bring up the chat that's here with Bill and Eric and Wabaro and Rich Room and everybody. What's up, everybody? I want to make sure to say hi. And the rest of it, again, you can see like in that conversation that she's having with her dad. Like there's some really interesting ideas there that they could have done. Simplest, like talking about, and I was thinking about something that I heard already from another channel was living in, what you want to live in your own skin. And there's a lot of different ways that they could have done that story, like, like with the scrolls. When you hear these conversations that they're having, when we hear all these conversations that they're having that are so meaningful, and again, it's as simple as what I put last week. Great conversations, mediocre story, relying on the actors to carry them across the finish line. The plot is going to do whatever it has to do to get to where they want it to go. Logic be damned. It's just, and the expectations that we had, honestly, at this point, we just kind of like, it's more of a puzzle we're trying to work out, even though I think it all still just comes down to money. It's like if they really were a little less concerned about just a little, enough to make this episodic instead of a movie, and just these little touches that make the stories and characters better because like you've seen them do good. And I've even been wrong about things. I was looking at times of episodes, and you know what? The episode times across the board have really not been that bad. But like what we're really talking about, I think, less than length is how they can carry on through by the end. And where we get here with Gaia and all this stuff in episode 4, like because we didn't get all these other things that would make these moments important, these moments that with Gaia and Ben Mendelsohn just fall kind of short and flat, and you don't really know how they got there in the first place. You know, she just wakes up, and then the next a hard cut to them sitting on the bench, and that's jarring too. You know, it's just, again, they've got real talent here, and it's just being, eh, it's fine. But again, like I've been watching Agents of Shield, and every single episode of Agents of Shield had stunts better than this, action scenes better than this, and we want to talk about budget. They did it for 7 years with an increasingly shrinking budget. And I know I'm getting off topic because I'm kind of like talking about two things that we were discussing, like the whole thing up till now in this
Sure.
Gaia part. That's basically what I have on that. I mean,
And
again,
there is a lot of reason behind exactly what it is that you're saying and you're seeing about, and a lot of it has to do with how Marvel has structured its series, which is very different than how they've traditionally done. Um, okay, I'll try and get this over real quick so we can jump right back in, but we've hit this point a couple of times, so I think it might be helpful to kind of see these shows in a little different way. Okay, in films and motion pictures, the director is the primary lead in visuals and the views and the storytelling and everything else. It's the director's tale, and everybody else is kind of serving that. The writer, while extremely important, often just does the first write and then is gone, and it's always the director rewriting the script and shifting it over to match his vision that they ultimately end up shooting and editing and putting out there. Television is almost exactly the opposite. In television, the writers are traditionally the primary vision of what a show is going to be and how it's all going to play out, which makes sense when you have multiple episodes, especially on old episodic TV where you'd have like 20, 22 episodes or more per season. You have different directors that come in and will tell that one episode, but the episodes themselves and the overall arc of that season and such are being crafted by the writer's room. And traditionally, writers are there in the pre-production process, through the production process, and then into post-production, because you're always going to have changes during shooting of availability or weather changes or anything like that. And then in editing, sometimes you have to do your reshoots and such. If it's film, a little different than with television, there's usually not enough time for that. But if you have to adjust scenes and so on, sometimes you want a writer there in order to help piece all those parts together and still make sure the story is being told. The person in charge generally of running that entire series is the head writer. He is the person in charge that's crafting the overall story, but ultimately he runs the show and thus is called the showrunner. Marvel series switches the series back to a director's film standpoint. They're viewing it not as 6 episodes, but as 1 6-hour movie, or however long it ends up being, which order episode counts. So that the director is primarily crafting vision, and thus they piece apart their writer room. They have them involved in production or in pre-production, but usually during production such, you just have the head writer. But he's not the showrunner anymore because he's not the final word. It's the director. And that can work, except a 6-hour movie flows entirely different when it's cut up into 6 different parts than if you go and watch the whole movie at once. So unless you have a director that's very knowledgeable about episodic television, you can get some crafting issues going on in there and how those emotional arcs and such are being told, and when are you going to break these moments down. So you have now a writer or a director that may or may not know about episodic television running an episodic show, and the writer, who is typically more in charge of this, not being the final word. That creates a lot of storytelling imbalance. Additionally, since Marvel has been good in trying to get a lot of representation, a lot of LGBTQ voices, a lot of minority voices, they're picking along a group of talent that may not have a whole lot of experience behind them, because the pipelines that would traditionally train all of these people, they don't have a whole lot of access to, hence the lack of representation that we have in the entertainment industry. What this ultimately boils down to is it's cheaper to hire these newer writers and newer directors, even if they don't really have experience either show running or being the head writer of a show or directing episodic television properly, in order to produce these Marvel series. And that lack of experience and knowledge, like the head writer for Secret Invasion, was a writer on Mr. Robot, which was a great show. But he was just one writer, and he's never run a show before. So this is a lot of new experience for him. The director has a lot of experience behind him, a couple of decades, but it's almost all in commercials and music videos, which tell very tight, concise stories, but doesn't have to worry about a whole larger craft, which to me explains why a lot of these scenes have wonderful moments and bits and are crafted wonderful little nuggets, but they don't really connect to an overall larger arc. And this is basically how Marvel series have ran, which would explain why there's a lot of these great moments, but they don't always piece together, because you have a lot of basically people without a whole lot of depth of experience running these shows, having to craft and make all of these decisions that they just have a limited experience about in order to do right. So sorry, long ass rant with that, but as I said, I've been doing a little digging in this week, and it explains a lot on how these go. One of which is our next little bit, the Priscilla and Fury sequences. We get kind of two of them. We get the flashback back to Avengers 2012, or just post Avengers, where we have the introduction of our Carver poem, and then we have the current kind of face-off over the breakfast table. So what have you, Alyssa, how have you been thinking about this relationship developing here, or I guess being informed to us, between Fury and his Skrull wife, Vara / Priscilla? And how has this worked for you?
Yeah, well, as I said, like, one of the strengths of the show for me has been Sam Jackson's acting, and like, I think a lot of the scenes that he has between other characters have been really strong, and and a great explanation, by the way. Like, I think he nailed it. Like, and I think that that's true. I really like this particular scene, both of them, between these two characters. I think it adds a lot more depth to their relationship. That, like, because at first it was just kind of like, it kind of felt like she was being sort of, retconned in, like, kind of just squeezed in there, and it does still feel that way to an extent. But I did appreciate getting more depth to the relationship, and I thought it was a really well acted scene, both of them, and I loved how they both pulled out guns and both missed intentionally, and yeah, there's a lot to like there. But yeah, as you said, like, it's just kind of like it doesn't fit in with everything else. Like, it's just a standalone scene. But yeah, I do like the relationship, but I'm just still not sure how it fits with the overall story that's being told here, and like how it all fits together. I don't know, but I just, as individual scenes taken on an island, I did enjoy watching these two actors play off each other. I enjoyed watching the scenes. But yeah, how do they fit with everything else? I don't know. I'm still trying to piece it together. You're muted.
Thank you. I get a little notice thing that pops up on that as well. It says, your mic is muted. No one can hear you. Um, I did. Yeah, I did think these were really kind of nice scenes, and I do like the two of them together. Um, I did like the introduction of the Carver poem in the beginning of the episode, and it kind of has a nice payback later on, as you're like, did you live your life the way you were? Now that we're looking at a moment where either or both of us may die, um, it is very romantic and it is very cute. And they do hit an interesting. She does pose kind of an interesting question to him at the end while he's leaving is, if I didn't change, if I had stayed who I was, would you have still married me? Is kind of an interesting presentation on dealing with prejudice and expectation and so on. But I don't know how much that really means in the sense of one. I mean, I don't know. I guess I didn't necessarily assume that she was always just in this human guise around him, but I guess that kind of makes sense that he would be. Um, but the question of whether or not that there's sort of a, I don't know, a prejudice involved with this, I didn't totally get, because he's always been extremely, at least in every scene from the beginning up through now, been very pro Skrull. And not just because they do things for him. I think, once we had gotten through the adventures in Captain Marvel, it very much established that he saw them, in a way as equals. Um, but I did think that that was kind of an interesting. Again, there are these kind of interesting moments, and like, was our love strong enough to survive this? I liked Fury mentioning, pardon me, that you were the biggest mistake I ever made. I went against every instinct on me, and even now, I don't know if I would have done anything different. There's that again, that sweet kind of romantic moment in with this, which is a great story. But how is that contributing? To me, it's not giving me anything I didn't think Fury already had, and a connection and trust. And the relationship with Talos, to me, said everything that they needed about a trust and relationship in with the Skrulls. I don't know what else this is adding on to it. And I don't know, Rob, maybe you've got an idea on this, or what do you think they're trying to say?
Well, right now I was thinking scenes from a Skrull marriage. And then I was like, why? Then I just realized that she just shouldn't even be in this movie. There shouldn't even be the marriage in it. And not like how we talked about it not being earned. And I'd really like to know what Mark, if you're like lurking in the chat, or when you watch this later, comment if you're thinking the exact same thing. I mean, these moments again would be great if they felt earned, and they're not. And I just feel like this just really should have been cut completely out, just completely out, because this would have been a great like Mr. and Mrs. Smith kind of story of Fury and his Skrull wife. That would have been an interesting story, an interesting movie. I'd watch it. But shoehorned in here is this unearned relationship that is just, I'm supposed to care. And they're saying, like as Bill says in the chat here, they're doing callbacks to the poetry and stuff. And it's all really, powerfully acted, but I got nothing to connect myself to it still. And it just is just a scene. And I found myself still disappointed that one, because they wanted to have this moment of the plot. You got to have that moment where he walks out, and I guess you'll never know. No, one of them should have been dead. And I don't say that out of bloodlust. It's just better. Because I've seen this done. Look, this scene, again, I wouldn't be saying this if this storyline even belonged in here. If they had done it better and they had earned it all, yes. They haven't. Somebody should have gotten shot. But it's just every time I think of how good the acting is and how good the dialogue is, and then I get bogged down in all the other crap that doesn't make sense. And I know we're heading towards a bunch of that coming up, so I'll shut up.
No, not at all. Now I like the fact that they both kind of walk away, that she kept her promise not to hurt him, and he didn't really want to kill her. That, on the strength of that emotional relationship, I do kind of appreciate that. But you're right in the sense that, again, we have a very short amount of time to get used to and try and believe this long, poignant relationship between these two. And we've gotten like 2 scenes out of them before this, if that. So, Alyssa, did you have anything you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, you mentioned the question that she asks him, and it looks like he's about to walk away, and then he stops and turns around and says, "I guess we'll never know." Like, I guess I didn't get that. Like, what did he mean? I guess we'll never know.
Because she chose to deceive me doing the job that I hired her to do. No, I got to put a patch over one to do that.
If he had come clean and just been like, this is me and this is who I am and blah blah blah, and like it's the end of Casablanca. They wanted, what I mean, but there's no plane and no Nazis.
Well, and interesting, they do kind of bring up the one thing, or at least in the scene between Priscilla and Rhodey in the church, which kind of opens up where, she's getting the orders to kill him. Is it from Gravik or not from Gravik? Who cares? Rhodey's in charge now. Which I guess, as we see later on, I think he's being played by a young Skrull girl or a woman, which I think kind of explains a lot more of, I was drinking a little bit more of that old Pappy before meeting with the president and, talking a lot of crap to people. It's that youthful energy in with him. Which, by the way, I think is kind of totally awesome, all of that, too. I did like that little moment scene. But when Rhodey is ordering Priscilla to kill Fury, they keep saying that and then not killing him over and over again when opportunities come up. I don't really understand what the whole point of that is. But what I really want to see, and I'm hoping we get this in our big season 5, is why Fury is such a mess post-blip. Because that's the one excuse that Priscilla gives to Rhodey. He's old Fury was trouble, not this Fury. He's old. And post-blip, he lost it. He wanted to run away and hide. We've gotten that mentioned over and over throughout this series. I'm really hoping we get to see, like, what is the Fury post-blip and why is he so messed up? I'm just throwing out, that's what I want to see next episode. That's the one little flashback bit that I want to see, far and beyond meeting Gravik as a young kid and playing footsie with Priscilla in Paris and in New York.
I think those are some.
I imagine that whatever you get, it's just going to be, if you get it, if you even get that. Because I'll bet I think that's even money right now, if you would even get that. Well, if you did, it would probably be something really basic. And it won't satisfy you. Because, like you said, they're covering film rules and things have to happen faster. So...
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think you have pretty lofty expectations there, Darren. Like, I wouldn't hold my breath.
Basic story background, I'm aiming too high. Okay, that does say something. That does say something with this.
Right? That's what I'm talking about. We've lowered them to the point where we don't know how to go any lower.
I expect there to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. And to people to talk and do things in the middle of there. That's as high as I'm going at this point.
Yeah. Well, I still am just at a loss at how they're going to resolve this. And in 2 episodes, and I don't think it's going to be good because I don't know how they're going to do it. Like
Olivia Colman sends in a drone strike and kills all the Skrulls. because we didn't get to see her yet. I'm expecting a big moment from her. So I'm again. I'm shooting for the moon, but
Yeah, maybe.
I still think that she's gonna play some real integral part. That's gonna be either another obvious betrayal or another obvious. At this point, none of it's surprising, right? If she's bad, whatever. If she's all of a sudden shows up, whatever. She'll be played well. The acting will be awesome, but like it'll just be more bullcrap.
Well, she's got to play some kind of role. I mean, she's been set up too much to not do something. So I don't know.
Look, I just want to see her Fury Owl again with its cute little eye patch on. Okay, that's adorable. I want one of those. I will put it on my desk. Yeah, Bill Casey here in the chat, giving us a nice rendition of the Raymond Carver poem "Late Fragment." Thank you, Bill. Also, just basically mentioning if he would have loved her, Priscilla, if she wasn't in that form, the one of the doctor that she took over, and that's why he says, "I guess we'll never know." Too.
Yeah, but I don't know why. Why is that the answer? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like, what do you mean you'll never know? Like you do know. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like,
it's not like he didn't know she was a Skrull,
right?
You know.
No, yeah, I get that part, Bill. I just don't know. Like that answer makes no sense to me.
Right. Now, if it's dealing with the larger, again, the question, and even Guy brings it up of living in your own skin. If I didn't have to look human, if I was just a Skrull, would you love me across those, that'd be cross species lines? That doesn't sound right, but I guess maybe cross worlds line. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I guess that is something, but that's really a larger human, question of being able to live in your own form.
Was he saying that, like, if they had stayed together and things weren't screwed up, then maybe she could have lived as a Skrull for a little while and they could have found out? I mean, I don't.
Yeah. I think Rob was kind of right. They're aiming for their Casablanca moment in that there. And it doesn't, again, we don't have enough history to be able to, kind of feel that jump that I think that they want us to do. But let's talk a little bit about Rhodey first, because we do have the nice old Pappy Van Winkle scene where I guess he puts a liquid tracer in the very expensive, it is like $5,000 a bottle, apparently, that whiskey or bourbon type of whiskey. Yeah. I don't like whiskey at all, so I could care less about how. I'm sorry. I have tried. It tastes like an old oak barrel, and not in a good way. But we did kind of have a nice little back and forth there between the two of them. And I do like the little reveal we have again of like, looks like a Skrull girl dancing in the shower and having a good time, and then now I got to be the old human. Damn. But it definitely explains the wrestling terminology he was using earlier about undertaking Nick Fury, which he totally didn't. But that's, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if there's really much to say about Rhodey. He's obviously the Skrull. We have known. Fury basically says it here. There's someone close to the president, as close as you and me are. Because.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I thought that I loved that scene. I thought it was really badass. I thought it was great how he like snuck in the liquid tracer to the whiskey, and when they had that reveal, it was like, oh, that's really cool. But the whole point of him doing that was so that they could arrive late to the shooting and do nothing and get Powers killed. I mean, they're like, I don't know, for such a cool like reveal. Like, I would have expected like, I don't know, something cool to happen. Like, I feel like, oh, we did this cool thing so we could be late and like be kind of useless and get killed. Like, I don't know. I just don't. like scenes like individually can be good, but then when you put them together, it's like, what was the point of that? I don't know.
Well, it's obviously so he could get dressed down by the president for enjoying too much old pappies before he got into the car there.
Right.
If you see flesh, press it. If you see steel, stop. Okay.
Do we want to get into? I don't know if you want to get into this discussion, but there's a lot of discussion online about like how long has he been a scroll? Like, is this just for this show, or was he a scroll? Was the last time we saw him in Captain America: Winter Soldier? I don't remember.
Yeah, we saw Winter Soldier and Endgame before that.
Like, I kind of think he's just been a scroll for the show, but I don't know.
There was an interview with Kevin Feige who intimated that he may have been through the scroll since an MCU film, which basically could mean is that it would basically go as far back as Endgame, potentially. He could have been. But also, we haven't seen, again, he broke his back and we haven't seen him in any things. And we've made assumptions that he's got some Stark nanotech that fixed up his back, or it's just, enough issues pass and everything kind of resets itself. But that would be a likelihood, which means he intentionally left Nebula there to die.
Are we going to get the real Rhodey at any point? Like, I don't know. So the whole time during the blip, that was a scroll. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Again, they have intimated, but we'll probably, that's the thing we have to, because this scroll will have to be exposed. They will have to find the humans that have been taken over. I think there's even a shot that's been in some of the preview material overlooking, a giant kind of farm field of bodies. That they'll have to be kind of a reveal. You can't end this show without having those people back.
Well, they can, but
you're right, but you can't be right.
They shouldn't in the, like, we at least gotta get that. Like, I at least want some answer to, okay, what happened to the real Rhodey?
Right. They're not going to be saving this till like the Secret War Avengers film. They do have to kind of settle this up right now, I think. Yeah. Or it's like, though this could be the first season and maybe they're holding on to it. I don't know.
I like what Bill Casey said in the chat, because I have heard people make this joke before. the real Rhodey was Terrence Howard the whole time. No one noticed.
Okay. If they pull that off, it will be hats off. I will golf clap all day long for them for pulling that off.
Like, no wonder you look different, right? Like, you were Terrence Howard the whole time.
It was this Paul Rhodey guy I duplicated, and then I was in the Senate meeting, and I was like, well, I got to play with it. I got the wrong guy, darn it. That would be cool if that would be good if they played that out. By the way, defenestrated, a nice big college word for Rhodey to use right there. That means being thrown out the window, which I had to look up because I love big fancy words, and now I'm going to use that in my vocabulary. I will have you defenestrated. I don't know, it's not as impressive as thrown out the window, but it's fancier, I guess.
I feel like you don't need a word for that. You could just say thrown out the window.
Unnecessary phrases that are worse than the one they replace. Okay, let's get to our sorry, did you have anything you wanted to throw on there, Rob, before we get to our big final battle here?
Let's just get to it.
Let's just get to it. Okay. This is definitely where everything kind of fell apart to me, because in a quick overview, this is kind of a cool scene. You got your big convoy, you got your helicopters flying in, you got bombs going off, you got gunfire and sneaky stuff happening. It's very cool. But if you look at all like deep and ask any questions, this whole sequence just kind of falls apart flat on its face. I don't know, Alyssa, what did you think on this kind of final scene? Did it work for you? Did you feel the tension? Were there did you have questions coming up in your mind at any point?
Yeah, I kind of found it boring, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, I can't really put my finger on why. Like, it just wasn't. I don't know. um, yeah, and again, like I was just so like frustrated that like, oh, so Fury and Talos are sitting in the car and like they're way behind everything. Like, what was even the point of them having that tracker? And like, the time they get there, like things are just out of hand, and it's just I don't know, and I just wasn't invested in this scene at all. Like I just felt like, I don't know, it just felt like kind of a I don't know typical Hollywood, poorly filmed action sequence that just there was nothing there that grabbed me that like made me want to engage with the scene. It was not, yeah, I wasn't feeling the tension. I wasn't on the edge of my seat. I was just kind of like, the show was over yet. I mean, it's, I don't know. Like, and that shouldn't be the case in an action scene. Is like if your action sequence elicits that response in your audience, then that's just not, it's not a good sign.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of it is because this was definitely a constructed and not logical scene. I mean, okay, look, the president's motorcade is going to have air cover as well. But I can imagine Rhodey being in his position calling that off. That's really more of a Secret Service thing. But I think they're on British soil. Is that right? Where that's happening? So they may not be concerned about that. But they should have normal air cover. I could see where that being gone. But Gravik mentions even earlier is like, we're supposed to be Russians, so make it big like the Russians would. But Gravik's in his normal look. And I don't know what the makeup is of the standard Russian army or special forces. All I'm saying is he's not even like some other human disguise. He's in Gravik form, just talking in Russian.
I did notice that too. Like that bothered me too.
I think with the explosions and stuff, there kind of makes sense. But I did appreciate that one moment where you see Rhodey's just sitting in his truck while stuff is blowing up around him, like waiting for it to go through. But he's not really doing anything to help stuff. He could have even snuck up and tried to take out the president or put a bomb on his truck so they wouldn't have to do it. Or again, like he wants Priscilla to kill Fury, but when Fury shows up in his room, he doesn't even try to kill him or pull out something. Maybe he knows Fury would take him out. But there seems to be a lot of these opportunities to get things done that just don't happen because we want scene to go longer. And you're definitely right about the late show up of Fury and Talos. And look, I understand Samuel Jackson is an elder gentleman there, and he doesn't have the physicality of his youth, and I appreciate that. Then don't try and sell a scene based on his martial prowess of jumping out of the van and taking a minute to run to the back and slowly grab it. They should have showed up like with the guns. Look, the scene from Winter Soldier where he's just in his truck is more engaging and tense than him running around in this battlefield slowly. I know, except for the stunt when they use the stunt doubles. What is it? Now look, I did like when they did get over to the president and the reinforcements all magically show up so they can get more people to get killed while they try and save the president. One, they're in this massive gunfire, but the guy can still go around and get arms on Talos and shoot him. Okay, I'll buy with that because I did like him kind of half human, half Skrull, and the soldier turning around like, it's an alien! And Fury's like, no, he's with me! And they go, oh, okay. If you're worried about prejudice, folks, it's not happening here. As long as you tell them they're on your side, that's okay. All of that was kind of fine. But it was right after that moment to me where everything fell apart. Because one, you have Gravik's totally unnecessary, but I have group powers, jump up to grab a guy, and like they do nothing else with that. He doesn't mow through them. He doesn't throw them all. He just grabs that one guy and then goes back to shooting with his gun. We didn't see anything else on that.
Well, they have a limited special effects budget.
They have a limited special
You can do
effects.
it one time. Like, you get one Groot effect. That's all you get this episode.
And I liked him going, and I liked, again, Talos busting through the window, and they pull out the president, and Fury's like, I'll be right back for you, Talos, and puts the president in his car, which magically is now not in the far back on the other side behind the bad guys where he had parked, but now right there over on the American side of the battlefield. It just moved about 100 yards forward, but that's cool. But then Graphic magically teleports behind the good guys, the American forces, now in disguise with this one guy who don't know what happened to him, gets Talos. Talos doesn't recognize Graphic, but Fury does, for reasons. They exchange gunfire, and none of the soldiers even acknowledge this gunfire is happening right next to them. Talos gets killed because, of course, that he has to. And then somehow a motorcycle pops up behind them. Again, none of the other soldiers even acknowledging this. So Gravik can get on it and ride away.
Well, as for the teleporting powers, I think one of the powers that he took was night crawlers. So
okay, I'm gonna see they didn't pan down enough. Thank you.
So they didn't scroll down.
I'll listen for the BAMF on the rewatch.
So yeah, they just didn't. It was off screen. They didn't show it, but he actually has Nightcrawler's teleportation powers. So that explains that. And then he put the motorcycle through it. So the motorcycle.
Sure. Sure. Okay. This is actually the Transformers crossover here that we're getting in with Marvel, which, by the way, years ago Marvel did produce Transformers comics. So, all right. That yeah, I don't know. It just became that kind of like, because television scene need happen. Where all of this around. I still don't know what happened to Rhodey. And of course, luckily they recognized Fury, and then they just let him drive off with the president without any backup either. I also don't believe that Fury would have left Talos there, even if he thought Talos was dead. Yes, justice for Maria, hashtag justice for Maria Hill. I could get that because he was in shock and sort of dragged away. Here he actually takes a moment to look and like, well, I guess I can't be back. It's too far. I can't walk over there. And then drives off. I don't know. Talos isn't dead, folks. I'm going to say that right now. But we will have another murder for the cliffhanger of next episode. I just don't know whose it's going to be.
Yeah, Talos I'm a little less sure about than I was Gaia. I think there's a chance he might actually be dead. I think it makes a lot of sense story-wise to kill this character off, but I wasn't necessarily expecting him to die this soon. So, I'll wait and see on that. But you could be right.
Well, on the plus thing, they might finally be able to find the actual SHIELD officer who Talos is impersonating. I can't remember his name, who's been locked in a basement for the past 20, 30 years at this point. Actually, just go back there, and there's just a skeleton with like 1/2 can of Chef Boyardee because they didn't think he'd be gone that long. Oops, sorry, forgot that. And that's where the episode ends. President is with Fury. Talos is dead on the ground or severely wounded, maybe.
He's not dead yet.
Not dead yet. I hope the guy that saves him is the one that Gravik was impersonating, who was like, oh, okay, no, he's fine. He's with Fury. I know he's an alien looking, but heck, man, over these past few years, the invasions, everything else going on, yeah, what's to be surprised about anymore? Disclosure is real in the Marvel universe. All right. Well, any final thoughts or wrap-ups or even low expectations for how this show's going to wrap itself up? Is there something? Let me throw it out more. Is there something that you think they really need to cover, tell, or convey before this show ends? Any one or two things that you're like, look, they got to hit this, or I really expect them to hit this before they wrap this up.
Well, one of them I already said, which is like the real Rhodey. Where is he? How long has he been gone? Um, and I don't know. Like, yeah, I could list off other things that I would hope for them to do, but I just don't have any expectations for them to do. Like, I would hope that there would be some other reveal that someone else is a scroll, that there's some other deeper meaning to this, or there's some deeper conspiracy, or something. I don't know, but I don't actually have any expectation that that's going to be the case. So, but the one that I think they could hit and they should hit is like at least show us what the deal with Rhodey is, the real Rhodey.
Yeah, if you're going to stop the invasion, you have to have them then release all the people that they're pretending to be. So no, I
Yeah, and if
definitely
you're gonna
agree.
come out and like not know about the blip or end game or any of that because he was there that long, like I need that too. I want that.
Sure. Yeah, I've got to say, I am hoping that we get the post blip flashback. In fact, I would love for him to come back into Dustin and be like, Kerr, because he was saying mother before he left, and they don't want to do the whole thing. So if they just added like a Kerr at the end as he comes back into his body, I would love that. But that's aiming high. I realize, that's a high syllable to go for.
That would be good. That would be good.
But I would like to see, even if it's not the moment he returns, is kind of like whatever that effect is, so we get that kind of backstory. Oh, you're right. They definitely have to. But I do have to acknowledge that as a secret invasion goes, it is pretty weak sauce. It's like pretend we're Russians. I guess there was the pretend we're that soldiers or that sailor so we can get on the boat, and but you got people in charge of governments. They don't seem to be doing anything. The NATO guy's not even really helping out. I don't know what that's used for. Rob, what about you? Is there one thing that you're like they've got to hit this, or that you are just hoping they're going to hit?
Hope? There's no hope here. You've come to the wrong place. Move along, sir. No, I got nothing. I don't. Because everything is just so. No, I mean, like God, every little thing that I find reasonable to say is just like no. That's why I'm just gonna stick with Alyssa on this one that I should have last week. I mean, except there's this part of me that's going like, I want to say, Alyssa, you mean that the guy that like there's actually gonna be a death that sticks besides Maria Hills? But I'm gonna roll with it.
Extremists.
Yeah, because it's like because here's the logic, right? If things don't make sense, so if we just keep writing that, it means that Gaia somehow teleported there with Extremis to or she'll drag her dad to the thing, right? And she'll give him Extremis, and there'll be a fight between Gravik and Gaia and Telos, where it's all three are using different, like all the powers. And Olivia Colman calls in a drone strike and kills all three Skrull scumbags because they got to go. Because Telos, he got... Okay, that was the only thing I wanted to mention, really, was Telos got seen, everybody. Remember, he's like, we just got to be safe. And that one guy's like, hey! And he goes, no! And he goes, okay. Yeah. So Telos was seen right before Telos was killed by a guy that was taken over by Gravik, and it meant nothing.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
It's a very sad expectation.
The last words that I said were, it meant nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a metaphor for this show.
Well, Bill Casey's thrown out the guy will probably kill Gravik for killing her father. That would make sense. You also got to have like a big fight, and I don't want to see CGI Sam Jackson fighting a super scroll. I wouldn't believe that would physically happen to Fury's benefit. Bill's also wondering if this episode was written by ChatGPT, and that may be a good question. The opening art sequence, of course, is all AI art. They wanted something that looked alien. I think it's a sad state of the entertainment business.
Wanted to say, as always, Bill, you are always in true rare form this evening. You're always great on the Discord. You're rare form tonight, my friend.
Actually, speaking of the AI stuff, I did want to throw out of course, industry news. I'm sure everybody has heard. The Writers Guild of America has been on strike for the past 3 months, fighting contracts against the Motion Picture and Television Producers Association. This morning at 12:01 a.m., the Screen Actors Guild contract expired. And this morning, the national negotiating team for SAG voted to go with what the actors have overwhelmingly called for, which is a strike against the producers as well. So the 2 major industry unions are now on strike. I think SAG's technically starts at 12:01 tomorrow morning. That is effectively going to shut down film production in this town for the foreseeable future. So I hope you have some shows recorded. I hope you have some physical copies of them, because the streaming services seemingly are starting to pull a lot of shows and movies off so they can minimize their expenses. The actors and the writers are fighting specifically not to be replaced by ChatGPT or AI, as well as a lot of much needed compensation and the diminishment of the writers' rooms, which are direct result of a lot of this subpar material you've seen. Alyssa, you had mentioned that you've been a little too much Marvel, that it's been over inundated. I counter, no, it's the mediocreness of that material which has been too much. And a lot of that is a direct result of reducing of writers' pays, of hours, of where they can contribute on to the show. That has prevented the pipeline that produces good showrunners that know how to make a series work from beginning to end. And now you have a lot of actors that are concerned about their voices, their image being replaced by fancy AIs. I do believe the opening episode of Netflix's current season of Black Mirror specifically deals with a lady whose life has been captured and is used by a streaming service for a show against her knowledge. So these are, a lot of it's sci-fi, but a lot of, as we've seen, this sci-fi is becoming real, and this is the time where the creators that make these shows just want to be fairly compensated for the work that they do. And it's hard to believe that someone like the head of Disney, Bob Iger, is getting paid $27 million this year. Can't seem to find it in the budget to cover expenses that honestly are not that much. For a current Hollywood flop, you could take care of all of the writers' needs and requirements for the next 3 years.
Yeah. Well, I do want to correct you on one thing. I did say that it's been too much mediocre Marvel.
Yes.
Specifically. Not just that it's too much Marvel, but it's too much mediocre Marvel, like one after the other. And so I've just been beaten down by all the mediocrity.
No, and I completely agree. And I think these, again, these are the reasons why what the writers are fighting for, what the actors are joining in with them in solidarity, is exactly that. It's the quality of these, and for producers, they're just looking at the bottom line amount of cash. So I hope this is solved quickly, but like I said, I hope you have your physical media. I hope you have stuff stayed up in your DVR. I hope you have enough shows
you could
to go.
Watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. again, or if you haven't started it, now would be a good time.
But all of your movie releases, coming up dates, those are all going to be pushed, all of your shows, at least 6 months. by the time stuff slows down and has to pick back up and everything. So hope this goes quickly. But hey, you got a bunch of old shows to watch, including Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which does this all for much more episodes in a more satisfying form. Alyssa, what you doing and where can people find you?
You can find me on Alyssa Jean's reviews. I'm mostly doing Star Trek these days. I'm covering Star Trek Strange New Worlds every Thursday. So my review for the latest episode is up there now. So come on and say hello. Find me on Alyssa Jean's reviews.
Yeah, and Strange New Worlds is freaking awesome this season.
Strange New Worlds, yeah, it's just so much better than this show. Like, there's a reason why I was way more excited for it than I was for this, because it's better, so much better.
Hashtag more Tegas. That's all I'm gonna say. Rob, where can people find you? I mean, outside of here, every Thursday night for the next 2 weeks.
Well, I'm trying to do a little bit more on my Twitch. So at Smirking Rob Plays, we did just finish Resident Evil 4. And I'm going to try to play a few games. We need to finish Hogwarts Legacy. I'm trying to play an old PlayStation game called Medieval. I'm also going to be finally trying to I've never beat it because I got butthurt when I heard something happens to Batman in the Arkham Knight game, and I just kind of threw it to the side for years. And now I'm going to try to actually, I'm not going to try. I'm going to play and finish that game on my channel too. So that's about it, though.
Nice. Yeah, I think Arkham City is the best of those 3 games. Knight's good, but yeah. I don't know. That was my opinion. I don't think the Batmobile is totally needed in that game, but it's fun to drive around Gotham, I suppose. Anyway, and yeah, I'm D, ranting over here on the corner. This is D's Reviews. We're here, at least, like I said, for the next 2 Thursdays to cover the final 2 episodes of Secret Invasion. Next week, Corey Schumacher will be joining us. Again. We'll have to discuss all of the AOS, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. disappointment that, no, we're not going to be seeing any of those characters on their show, folks. I'm sorry. It's not happening. All those leakers that say that it is, they're lying to you. It's not going to happen. But we will get to cover that up. I hope we do get some Fury backstory. And then Don Willie will be joining us, hopefully, for the final episode in 2 weeks to sum this series up and talk about what's coming up after that. So thank you guys so much for watching live. Bill Casey, Eric Scott, The Rich Room, Barbaro, everybody there, thank you so much for joining us live. Everyone joining us in the archives, thank you, appreciate that. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. I'm D, I'm out of here, and we will see you next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.